As someone who's taken a non-traditional route into tech, what advice would you give to others looking to transition into the industry?
My advice is to be kind of fundamentally proactive.
In every role, we have like non-functional testing. It's not like separate role basically. So that is the main advantage in working in companies like DWP and civil service organization.
If we're building a product that is sort of customer or some sort of user, who are they? What do they do? What is their sort of persona? Put yourselves in their shoes. If they're sort of an agent-facing person, who are their customers? Who are they dealing with? How's this product going to improve what it is that they need to do?
Hi, welcome to another episode of the DevLab podcast brought to you by hackajob. As you have heard from our introductions there, we're joined by Russell, Naren and Callum from DWP Digital. To start the podcast, we're going to just do a few introductions and find out a little bit more about each of their journeys into tech. So Russell, let's come to you first. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into the world of technology, and then ultimately how you ended up in your current role at DWP Digital.
So I'm Russell. I'm the head of role for test engineering at Department of Work and Pensions. I kind of got into tech by accident, like many people do. I started working in a call center and had to volunteer because I was getting bored, really, to do a training manual on a new bit of software. And that training manual demonstrated the software didn't work because we couldn't do any actual of the processes. So then I got volunteered as the expert to do the testing of said software. We didn't have any testers. And so I naturally ended up kind of being involved in it and then got bored again. And started writing test plans and doing other things and coordinating my bosses. And thus they gave me a job as a tester, and I became the first tester in that company. And then my career's just grown throughout that sort of time, working in many sectors, from charities, government, FTSE, finance, insurance, banking, you name it. I've collected the kind of bingo card, basically, of different domains, it seems. So I got into DWP by working in consultancy most recently and seeing obviously an opportunity to work and help and support kind of the great work that some of our government services do. And it's fantastic, obviously, to be part of, I guess, helping society, helping the kind of your neighbours and so on, and helping make a difference. I'd worked there briefly before. So I had a bit of an insight, but I could see how much they put towards people and how much they wanted to improve. And obviously with those two key things, it makes it a great place to work.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Russell. I'm really looking forward to finding out a little bit more about that non-traditional journey into technology, maybe some advice you have for others on a similar career path, and of course, some of the interesting bits that you got going on at the DWP as we get further into the podcast. But Naren, we'll come to you next. So same question, how did you get into the world of technology, and then ultimately, how did you end up in your current role?
My name is Naren, and I always wanted to end up in tech. So when I started the uni in Leeds, I started a part-time role as a customer service assistant in William Hill. At that point of time, that was the name of the betting company. So I was serving behind the till, and I was asked to test the betting slips in the office, in the IT office we had in Leeds. So I was given chance, like a couple of weeks, I was trying whatever I was doing in the retail shops, basically. So then I really liked it. Like I was actually testing and finding the bugs. So, and also I always wanted to have a career in IT. So both of the goals basically helped me to end up in the technology role. So that's the answer for that one. And how I ended up in DWP. So when I started after William Hill, I moved to another company called Salesforce. So it is a Salesforce domain, basically, again in retail sector. And then I worked in Every, which is the parcel net company, again retail. And I was looking for like more to get a hands-on with non-functional and more into accessibility, performance testing side of things. So I got like DWP has this kind of testings that's done in the different teams. So I've applied for the role, and I got selected for the role as senior, and currently working as a lead test engineer. So I've been enjoying working in DWP for the last 5 years.
Oh, fantastic. Excellent. I'm sure you've got plenty to share with our audience with 5 years of experience already within the business. And again, looking forward to finding out a little bit more about your current role and your different approaches to testing. And then finally, last but not least, Callum, we'll come to you with exactly the same question. So how did you kind of get into the world of tech and your current role?
Yes. So when I left school, I kind of knew that I wanted to work in technology. I wanted to do something. But then life happened and it just has its own way. And I ended up working in a photographic laboratory for several years. And then the company that I worked for, they went into liquidation, and I was unemployed for a short period of time. And then I applied for a call center role at what was then the CSA, Child Support Agency, which was a subsidiary of DWP. And I started there in mid-2000s. And at the time, they were going through some work on one of the computer systems, some remediation work and sort of improving productivity. And I ended up doing some user testing of some stuff they were trialing at the time. And then through that, I ended up falling into like a system testing role. From that system testing role, I got a permanent job with HMRC, moved across to HMRC and learned all about automation, worked with some fantastic people who taught me a lot. And then 8 years ago, I moved back to DWP as a test lead, and yeah, I've been here ever since.
Yeah, and look, I mean, so many years working in the public sector, I'm sure you've added tons of value across the board on various different projects in various different settings. So yeah, really interested to get into this further and find out a bit more about what you've been up to over your time at the DWP and across the rest of your career. Fantastic. Thank you so much to everyone for kind of those brief introductions. Definitely give everyone out there listening just a little flavour of your background and some of the experiences that you have to date. Russell, we'll come back to you on this next kind of set of questions. So as someone who's taken a non-traditional route into tech, what advice would you give to others looking to transition into the industry?
Really good question. Thank you. It's hard and can be hard at times because there's so many different options. My advice is to be kind of fundamentally proactive. There are lots of people in the community of sort of digital tech that actually want to help, want to guide, want to support, want to mentor. And if you're in a city, then you're likely to be in a kind of a meetup space area. So you'll find lots of meetups on Agile, on Java coding, on databases, on data science, on software testing. All these things kind of exist and they're free. Usually, and they give often free pizza and drink, so you can get a free meal often. So there's quite a lot of things like that you can learn about it, you can do it. Often if you're in a big company, you can speak to the people in digital roles that'll happily help show you the role, walk you through it, do things. You can do lots of different things. Like if you want to go out there, you can look at apprenticeships. We're quite a big apprenticeship doer within the DWP. It's obviously a government initiative, so not surprising we're part of it. But there are lots of apprenticeship schemes out there for companies. There are lots of training companies. I won't name any names, but that will take people that want to get into tech, give them an apprenticeship, find them a role during that period of time, and help them transfer their skills into a digital skill set, be it software tester, DevOps, software engineer. There's quite a few we work with, and we get people through those sort of routes. Other companies do too. There's a whole apprenticeship levy thing which encourages companies to do it. There's lots of different ways of getting involved now as well. And if you really want, you can go to conferences. Often they cost you a bit more money, but they'll excite you. You can kind of do some paid training. You can subscribe to likes of online learning platforms and learn quite a lot of the basics through those. You can even go to universities. There's some in the US that have platforms online that are free, and you can do a computer science course and so on. So there's lots of learnings. And then it's obviously about showing that passion. So on your CVs, your applications, and that'll encourage people to kind of take a chance on you. And I've seen quite a few people successful in those sort of routes because they've shown a passion. And in an interview, if you're looking for someone who's shown self-development, shown a passion, who comes across really, really well, you'll get chances. You'll not get everyone. Some people want experience. You're not going to get that. But there are people that actually will prefer the passion over the experience. So it opens doors up if you kind of explore things yourself. And if you're lucky, you'll have an employer who will try and support you. But not everyone is that lucky, I know. So that's kind of what I would say is some of the routes that you can get into it. Being involved, like my role, I told you, was I put hand up to write a training manual. That's how I got in test ultimately, if I were to go down to the 5 whys. So, take a chance, take opportunities, engage, get involved, go sideways a little bit, and things will appear. And when something is a bit odd, you don't know about it, go and learn it. Be that proactive learner. It might be in your time, it might be in the company's time. But if you engage in that sort of continuous learning model, you'll find you'll fit into tech better because technology doesn't stay static. So we're always looking for people that want to learn because what I'm doing today wasn't the same technology I was using 2-3 years ago.
Awesome.
So That was my advice in general.
No, great advice. Look, and I think really, comprehensively covered all the different routes that people can take. I think really the main takeaway there is just having that bravery to actually go and explore them, right? There's lots of different ways you can get into it. There's lots of different people you can speak to. And we do still have a digital skills gap in this country where there are those opportunities for people that show that passion, that show that desire. So really, it's about just putting yourself out there and giving it a go, right?
Yeah, exactly. The skills are in high demand. There isn't enough skilled people to fill the roles, certainly, what we see, which would suggest that, if people are upskilling, opportunities exist.
Fantastic. Excellent. Naren, Callum, anything you'd like to add on that?
Yeah, definitely being proactive is the main part. Now, I completely agree with what Russell said. So always being proactive, and now sometimes people think like, what if I go wrong? If I do this POC, there's nothing wrong. There's always like people to help you and then share their opinion and then take it from there. Yeah, absolutely agree. Thank you.
Yeah, I think one of the other routes that a lot of people that I've worked with that have taken into testing is via software development. So people who have gone through a more traditional route into the tech industry have sort of jumped on the sort of the bandwagon of testing because it's something that they're passionate about, making things better, making things follow some sort of quality structure, and you see that a lot, and that's really good in this sort of arena that we're working in now, where things are a lot more technical. We're looking for people with technical skills who can also do the technical thinking, the analysis piece as well. So you need a little bit of both. You need a good balance. Like I said, there are more traditional routes in. You don't necessarily have to do just testing courses. Go do Java and Python and all kinds of other software engineering stuff.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks to everyone. Yeah, some really good advice there for anyone out there listening. And we will take a lot of those answers and summarize in the description of the podcast. We'll put some helpful links in there for anyone that is thinking about starting that journey into a tech role. We'll make sure that there's some useful links linked in the description of the podcast. So Russell, we'll come back to you. I mean, you gave me quite a nice segue there into this question anyway. You mentioned the fact that the tools you were working with maybe 3-4 years ago aren't the tools you're working with now. So how has your role evolved at the DWP, and what are you most excited about for the future? And I'm sure it's not just the tools. I'm sure there's lots that's kind of evolved during your time there.
Yeah, so I'm not a long-serving civil servant. So I've only been about 18 months in the role. But as a leader, I've been obviously a leader for quite a while. So you have seen sort of technology changes. You've seen in the 18 months, you'll have seen a lot of talk of AI. I think you'd have been hibernating for a long time if you haven't heard of AI. So AI is kind of one of the areas to explore, to learn. 18 months ago, I knew very little. I'll not lie. I was one of the people that I'd seen the term branded and used badly in the past, where it was AI was being branded for chatbots and things like that didn't have any artificial intelligence in them. They were just a logical, you type this, they reply this. So I'd kind of been burnt by AI. So my role has evolved to kind of learning more about it, seeing how it fits, asking questions, understanding about it, and kind of working more across government as well, rather than just within DWP, actually going to work with other agencies across the government in order to try and help look at AI, but also look at testing, the job roles, things like that, and be collective balance. I had the opportunity to support software engineering side, not just the testing side of DWP as well, but technology is the key thing that's evolving. So we're trying to shift things left, which is basically make quality an earlier process. So that's kind of like adding things in earlier in pipelines, looking at how we can validate integration sooner than waiting until everything talks to each other. So my role is to work with the likes of Callum and Naren and others here to kind of see how we can facilitate, help, train, build, learn, do. We've got some technologies that we've helped improve and add to our stack. So my role is just facilitating and getting those. I think AI is over the peak of kind of buzz now into kind of the reality a bit more, which I think is exciting. Because then we can actually get to the real value it offers, and it has some amazing value. It really does. It was a bit overhyped, but then most things in life are. But I think it does help us develop software better, ask more questions, find out more research. We talked about learning before. It's a great tool for learning. I wouldn't take any answer from Google on learning verbatim, nor with AI. So that's kind of the things I would do. I'm excited about the kind of digital space that we're in, we're trying to make the journey for customers better. So historically, you'll have called the government and you'll have got singular answers, tell us 10 times certain data. We're trying to stop that, and that's through engineering. That's through building systems that communicate better. That's cultural change. It's organizational change, it's software change. So that's really, really important for the benefit of our citizens, but also is an incredibly hard task to kind of do that with technology to be reusable across a ginormous organization. So there is lots of things going on, and it's constantly changing, and that's in 18 months. Trying to move to these things. Some of these have been longer going, but just trying to put the building blocks in place to make these successful. It'll be interesting to see what goes on. And I said, technology more and more shifts to kind of continuous deployment models for those who are tech savvy. We want to shift more of that, more rapid releases. So, historically, government, big old mainframes release every year, to microservices that we release every hour. That's the goal. And we're on that path. We're not fully there yet. And as you can imagine, a big company, big area, big business, big department, it takes time, but I can see the positive kind of signs of life, if you see what I mean, to kind of move us in that direction. So that really enthralls me because I can see the end result, the benefit to the citizens, the benefit to the users. I've used our services. I know at times they can be frustrating. So it's fantastic to see that the drive from the organization to make a big difference.
Fantastic. And look, I think for anyone out there listening in, the opportunity to have that impact directly on people's lives is always something that I think is a very rewarding part of any role. But then also to know, that we are moving away within the DWP from perhaps the perception that people might have had of government organizations from a tech standpoint, and moving towards faster deployment and leveraging new technology. It's the best of both worlds of being able to have that impact, but also being able to utilize tools and technologies that are closer towards the cutting edge. Based on your experience of supporting leadership, what are some of the key challenges in transforming government services to be more collaborative more collaborative and technology enabled?
Sorry, I missed that.
It's all right. So based on your experience supporting leadership, what are some of the key challenges in transforming government services to be more collaborative and technology enabled?
Hearts and minds. That's the key challenge. You're changing people that may have been in a role or position and doing things in certain ways for a period of time. As we talked about, if release cycles are yearly, then you're going through quite a slow change process. So changing people into kind of fast ones. So you've got to make leaders be aware of kind of how you manage risk differently. And you've got to kind of facilitate and work with people across a full, I'll call it holistic stack of software. So from the people that want to use it, to the people that manage it, the people that support it, the people that design it, working together to change the way you think. And if anyone's ever tried to change the way they think, they'll know that on a personal level, that's nigh on impossible. At an organizational level, cultural level, it's really, really hard. So, you've got to change how accountability works. You've got to change kind of the boundaries between different teams to make them more fluid and rigid. You've got to talk about kind of a full stack model, this sort of hybrid sort of world. And you've got to kind of make iterative changes so that actually you can move it there. So we won't go from mainframe yearly on a service to it instantaneously releasing every hour. Some of our newer services will build with this in mind. We'll do training, we'll support people, we'll advocate them, we'll send them to conferences and events to learn, we'll put them on training courses. We'll have people like Callum, Naren, myself talk about what good looks like and share that sort of message and view, and work with our leaders to talk about the benefits. We aren't changing for change's sake. That's a lot of what we've got to do. So we've got to advocate why this approach is better. Why is DORA metrics, as an example, a good way of measuring things versus just number of bugs that escape? Impact is more important possibly than quantity at times, and things like that. The ability to respond to a failure. We've all seen banks and other services have issues, downtime, outages, and the disruption's huge. In the government, if a benefit system has a failure, people can't feed can't get food and things. It is catastrophic. So, if we can manage risk better so that we can roll back things, change things, it's fantastic. So, it's advocating those, it's explaining that value to the other leaders, explaining how AI can actually add value, how it can assess things, make information more presentable. So it's working with leaders in planning, designing, training, all those things to kind of transform it. It's putting some standards in place. I would love to say it was all free for all, but actually no, it's setting some kind of base levels, service levels, things that are needed to actually get a better place. How APIs should work. There's certain good practices we have to share. So a lot of it is kind of communication. Actually, all of it is communication, trying to take people on the journey and retrain, reskill. And it sounds a bit harsh, but it's hiring the right people to start with. It's hiring people, as I said before, they're adaptable. The pace of change is evolving. So we also have to have people that can adapt. Like when I first started, automation tools were limited. You knew that tool, that was it. You kind of just worked on that for 5 or 6 years. Nothing would ever really change much. Now, you've got Selenium, obviously the most common one. You've got Cypress was really popular. Playwright is coming. There's been other ones that have come and gone in between. There's proprietary tools from service providers. So it's about learning the core and adapting those skills. So supporting our leaders is about giving them training too. Leadership is everyone's responsibility. It's not something that's just one person's. We're all leaders. So it's giving them the belief that they can help change things, that they can own problems, that they can own fixing the things. They can talk upwards, downwards, outwards as needed to kind of make a difference, and that their voice will be listened to. And that's really hard when you've got 80 or 90,000 people. But it is important, and it's giving them the space and time to do that. And leadership is all about kind of making people feel and have an impact. So it's facilitating them in many ways. But if we do that, then obviously we collaborate more. We do more technology-based things that actually bring value. We don't just do it because we did it before. And obviously the next phase of that is we don't just work as DWP. We work as government. We work across the board. So, we are grading at the moment in time actually across government test community as an example. Some exist for other areas. All of that is helping to drive change, more sharing of knowledge, and that goes on. So a very long-winded answer, but yeah.
Comprehensive is the word I would use. Very thorough. No, I think fantastic look, and I think music to the ears of anyone out there listening. Not only is there an opportunity to use modern technologies, not only is there an opportunity to have a big impact on society, but also, it sounds like a great culture being formed within the business, a culture of collaboration, the fact that, everyone in the business can be a leader and take that certain level of independence within, the remit that they've been given. Again, I'm sure is, as I said, music to the ears of anyone out there listening and thinking about their next role in tech. So thank you so much, Russell. Naren, we'll come to you next. So your role will obviously involve collaborating very closely with developers on very fast-paced projects, I'm sure. How has your approach to testing changed as systems have become more agile?
Yeah, definitely in that project, one of the projects that I mentioned, my approach to testing was changed in terms of collaboration. So it was a fast-paced project, so we got some deadlines basically to deliver, and more collaboration was definitely required. So I used to talk to developers regularly, and how they, in terms of like how the environment was being set up, and then if they could do any early development in the process, and also like if there is any possibility for me to do early testing. So basically, I have emphasized the test-first approach, and after talking to the developers, and once they have agreed with my test-first approach as a team, the clear manifestation was like test-first approach for our entire team, basically in that particular project to meet the deadline. So if I go into a little bit details, so after, as everybody knows that, after having the team stand up, so I used to have a call with the developers about the features being developed and particularly what they were working on that day, and anything early testing could be done for that particular functionality, and what are the tests that developers were going to write in their part of their unit tests, and are there any places that they feel less confident and more worrisome that I could be spending more time in terms of testing. So this way, like every day, like collaboration was the main part in that my testing approach during this project. Basically, also kind of involved a business analyst and another other team members as well, along with the developers, but mainly with the devs. And there was a kind of like cross training between myself and devs as well. So that was another thing that I had experience in this particular project. Basically, I was helping them with the understanding the automation framework from my side, and they were trying to explain me how little bits of code that they were writing. So in that way, almost like we spent like 4 or 5 hours on a call with the developers particularly, and also included the non-functional bits as well in the early process of the development. Basically, so normally we bring a non-functional a little bit later in the project down the line, but in this project, so we started non-functional to bringing non-functional very early in the stage. And also there was another thing, like it's like kind of boring if you keep certain developers on certain pieces of functionality regularly. Similar thing applies to the testers as well, but we try to change that one by rotating the work so that it's interesting for everybody. So that is the approach that I have taken, and since then I started following that approach in every project that I have been part of, so that so the main focus is shift early, so basically bring the testing as early as possible. So that was my approach in that project basically.
Phenomenal. Look, and I think really captures the essence of Agile. Obviously you can apply Agile in lots of different ways, but the communication, the collaboration, the cross-functional kind of conversations that are going on, and as you say, bringing people together earlier in the project definitely captures the kind of the necessity for Agile and the main benefits that you get from it. So thank you so much for such a detailed answer there. We're going to next chat about some of the career growth opportunities within performance testing at DWP. So could you outline for our listeners kind of what opportunities exist for career growth within this area?
Within performance testing in DWP, so every like a functional testing, like a top-down approach, basically we have like associate tester, and which is junior level basically, and also mid-level is senior executive officer, G7, and lead. So at in every role we have like non-functional testing. It's not like but separate role basically. So that is the main advantage in working in companies like DWP and civil service organizations. So that's one of my interests when I joined DWP basically. So if and there is like, for example, in the current team that I'm working in, a developer is really interested in performance testing. So they're trying to move from the development role towards the non-functional testing role, mainly performance testing, so they can analyze the results better when we get the performance results, test run results based with their existing development knowledge. Similarly, for the functional testers, if anybody wants to particularly move to the role of performance testing, yes, definitely. So they can move to like senior performance test kind of role actually. But coming to the roles, like I mentioned earlier, I'm sure Russell and Callum can give their input as well. We have like a bottom-top approach, and we have opportunities regularly to grow in their career basically.
Fantastic. Excellent. And again, I think speaks to, what a fantastic opportunity it is with the DWP. Clearly, an organization that is very focused on investing in staff, investing in learning development, and offering those opportunities for people to grow. So again, anyone out there listening in, certainly worth following up afterwards. And as mentioned, we'll include in the description of the podcast plenty of links, not only to get on the path of learning into technology in general, but also in terms of how you can get in touch with the DWP and find out a bit more about what's going on there at the moment. Naren, we're going to stay with you for one final question, and then we will come to Callum to round things out. So Naren, how do you stay up to date with the latest tools and techniques in non-functional testing?
A few different things there basically. I personally I check on the internet, and then I always keep search for top most used tools in the performance testing basically. That is one of the ways I always do. And also second thing is basically learn from experts and peers. We have some specialist performance testers, engineers in particularly in DWP from like 15 years of experience. So definitely always talking to them, collaborating with them is another way that helps me a lot. And not only about the tools, if I'm stuck with something, just to get their knowledge is always the best thing to do. And also one thing which Russell mentioned earlier in one of his answers is like cross-government channels we have. So that is the new thing that that's really interesting. So we have Slack channels, we have like meetups, and we have test bash and other things that are available. So again, there people share like about the new tools and technologies is another way for me to really keep myself up to date. And if I'm in a new project, so first thing I ask is basically if I have the liberty of choosing a new tool, then that's a win-win really. So just do a POC, and then that is another way actually. So these are the 3 to 4 ways that I keep myself up to date with the testing tools in performance testing.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much, Naren. Callum, so as promised, we're going to round things out with a few questions for yourself, delving into that wealth of experience you have from working within the public sector. So what I wanted to touch on first was kind of around the influence you can have on product development. So in your experience, what are some of the most effective ways for testers to influence product development in a large organization?
This is something I'm really passionate about, actually. For anyone that's ever been interviewed by me, you'd find that I ask a lot of questions on this subject because I want to see people's sort of ways of thinking, their analysis and stuff like that. And it has to be that we need to get involved from the outset, from early stages of development, from the actual inception of ideas of thinking before things are sort of ironed out into ironclad requirements that you can then delve into to some degree, but you can't change the way that the sort of things are mapped out fundamentally. So we need to get involved early. And now that's not all down to the testers. That's down to like the likes of me and the likes of Russell and Naren and people like that, to influence the people who hold the purse strings to allow to pay for testers to be involved early on. And make sure that we can have that influence. But it's looking at things like the ideas that we're working on, the architecture, the high level requirements. Why? What are we doing? What are we doing? Why are we doing it? Who are we doing it for? If we're building a product that is sort of customer or some sort of user, who are they? What do they do? What is their sort of persona? Put yourselves in their shoes. If they're sort of an agent-facing person, who are their customers? Who are they dealing with? How's this product going to improve what it is that they need to do? So there's all kinds of stuff like that. One of the techniques that I use a lot, and Russell actually mentioned it earlier, it may have been like something he sort of like passed over a little bit. 5 whys is a really, really valuable technique that I use a lot. So when someone says, well, we're doing this, I'm like, well, why? And then they'll give some sort of other vague answer, and you go, why are we doing this? And then eventually you can get to the point where you've highlighted that there's some sort of big assumption that, well, right now that there's a risk there then, because you've assumed that this thing is true. You haven't actually done the research to find out whether that is the case or not. Let's do some more work on it. Let's change the way of thinking in that arena. So I find that very, very valuable. And like I said, it does highlight the risks when you do that. And if you are involved early, you can sort of change the direction of travel and make things much, much better. If we go into sort of like the non-functional side of things, the putting in place of early testing ideas and quality ideas, you can eradicate a lot of sort of accessibility issues by designing accessibility in the first place. And obviously that's a great thing, because accessibility is not just about people who have apparent needs. It's usability for everybody.
Fantastic. Look, and I think there's been a real theme through everyone's answers in that focus on collaboration, breaking down silos, communicating earlier in the process so that you can actually plan ahead and get ahead of things rather than more of a reactive, old school kind of waterfall style model. So definitely speaks to that strong engineering culture that's been built within the organization. Next thing I wanted to focus on was kind of the impact of some of the projects that you've worked on over your time in the public sector. So I know earlier you mentioned the NHS Change Exemption Programme as a standout project. I wondered if you wanted to elaborate a little bit on that, as well as touch on any other projects that spring to mind that you feel have been particularly impactful.
Yeah, so as a lead test engineer, I don't get massively hands-on with things, so I have a lot of oversight of many different projects. Like I said, the NHS Charge Exemption Project was one of those that sort of appealed to my sensibilities because of working across different organisations and that data sharing, but ultimately that it was beneficial for the end user. It was beneficial for the person who immediately had an answer that they didn't have to pay for this prescription because the API calls between the departments were like nigh on idiots. So it's that kind of thing, that collaborative working, that sort of saving of time, money, and effort that I'm quite passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
So like other projects that I've worked on, as I said, I work across many rather than be deeply involved in few. So one of the other ones that I'm quite proud of, I guess, because I was involved within more, was one of the file transfer systems that we developed in DWP. So in DWP, 8 years ago, the estate was particularly sort of aging, and there's lots and lots of different pieces in place, different technology pieces in place all over the place. So there was many different file transfer solutions in place. We decided to build another one to replace it. Obviously, the danger there is that you don't actually replace anything and you just end up with X plus one. But in this instance, we did actually manage to remove some of these file transfer solutions. I think they're all gone now. I think we're down to one. But I've moved away from that section now. But the money that we were spending on some of those commercial products was ridiculous. It really was. It's one of those things where it may have been more money efficient at one point, but over the years, that cost has grown, and then we've been like stuck because it was what we were using and there's no replacement. So saving that money for the taxpayer and getting a more a cleaner, more well understood estate, I think is something that's really good.
Yeah, for sure. And again, yeah, for anyone else listening in, sorts of impact that you can be having across the country, across all different elements of kind of public sector, that really has a meaningful impact on people's lives, or a meaningful impact on how taxes and funding and things like that are spent. Again, I'm sure for anyone listening, certainly piquing some interest. So look, final question for you, Callum. What changes or innovations are you most excited about seeing in how government digital services are delivered moving forward?
So again, Russell's kind of stolen my thunder on this one. He mentioned a lot of these things in I think his final two questions. The obvious answer is AI. So looking at how AI can improve our services, and I think as Russell mentioned, there are some. I won't go so far as to say obvious ways that they can, but there's things that it seems like we possibly could do these things. Obviously, working in a government organisation, there are many controls that we have to sort of adhere to in terms of security and data protection, rightfully so. But what I would like us to sort of explore is becoming a little bit less risk averse, a little bit more risk savvy, let's say. Let's understand the risks of this and sort of mitigate those risks, and explore what this technology can do for us. And it's not just us. It is like I said in the last example, it's the people who we're building these services for. Those people are benefiting from these instantaneous results. And there's things like data sharing across the department, not department, the government as a whole. We don't do that well enough at the moment. And there's a news article recently about a big benefit fraud that the DWP sort of stopped and intercepted. There was some criticism of DWP in that news article. I think the judge said something that the DWP should have spotted this. And if we had better data sharing, that probably would have been the case. So using things like AI to check all the different systems that we've got, for fraudulent behavior, that sounds like a great thing to me. So that excites me. But there's other things as well. So as Russell already mentioned, things like continuous deployment. We're still a little bit risk averse, and we don't do true continuous deployments. We do continuous integration. We're continuously pushing code up and improvements and new features, but putting those into live is still like a scary thing for the department to do. So so we still have a lot of manual interventions, and I'd like us to get sort of more savvy with that. Again, AI may be the solution there, checking that we've dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's. Something that Russell didn't mention, so you're not still on me thunder on. I'd love to see us explore A/B testing in prod. I know that our user researchers and user experience people do a lot of that in their prototyping, and that's great. But I'd love to see it in prod users, real users using systems and exploring feedback from those people.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you so much. Look, sounds like there's lots of different initiatives being looked at. There's definitely always more to be done, but it's always a journey, right? And it definitely sounds like as an organization, very much on that path, and kind of ticking things off as you go. So yeah, again, for anyone listening, I'm sure it's very intriguing. So look, thank you so much for all of your really comprehensive answers there. I think you've given everyone a really good insight into life at the DWP and some of the things that are going on there at the moment. Before we do wrap up, I just wanted to give each of you a quick opportunity to give some advice to someone who might be considering a career in technology within the public sector. So Callum, we'll come to you first on this one, just giving you, you had your thunderstone a little bit last time, so we'll give you the opportunity to go first on this one.
It is a difficult one. I think if you're passionate about technology and you're passionate about improving public services, then just go for it. I don't think there's any particular advice I could give other than learn your subject matter. Know what it is that you want to do within the public service itself, within the public sector. There's reams of opportunities to change what you're doing and how you're doing it. So you could start as a software engineer, and like I said, you could see yourself more as a test engineer and change role because of it, and I welcome that. But there's all sorts of opportunities within the public sector and around that kind of thing, about changing role, about sort of following a different path. So it's like architecture and infrastructure and DevOps. There's reams of opportunity. I can't hear you, Phil.
You're on mute, Phil.
Cheers. Good catch. Thank you so much, Callum. Naren, anything you'd like to add? Any advice you would give to someone who might be considering a career in technology?
Yeah, no, two things which Russell and Callum mentioned. Being proactive, that's the main thing. And also there are lots of training opportunities and learning things, particularly in civil service organizations. So if somebody have these two things, and there's nothing stopping them, basically. So that's my advice.
Lovely. Short and sweet. Thank you so much, Naren. And Russell, over to you.
Fine. Take from Naren, I'll keep it short and sweet. It's amazing to work in technology. It's learning constantly. It's evolving constantly. You're never bored. You're actually not just dealing with technology, you're dealing with people. Ultimately, without people, no one builds technology. So don't forget, don't think you're just going to be heads down on a computer. You're not. You'll be communicating, working, learning lots of new things that come in, experimenting, trying things best you can. And the public sector is amazing as well. I've worked public, private. They've all got positives, negatives. There's good places, bad places in all of them. There's good controls, there's good technologies, there's bad technologies. But the one thing I know public sector gives you that private sector generally doesn't in most cases, there are some exceptions, is a sort of sense of well-being. The fact that you are helping, you are making a difference. And I can't over-egg that. Like, working for a bank doesn't do the same things to your soul as working in the public sector. Knowing that you're there for the benefit of people to help. And, you challenge people based on, is this for the good for the citizens? Are we spending money wisely? So much better than, are we putting profit into someone else's pocket? And therefore, I would say public sector is an amazing place to be. It has its challenges. Though, as I said, I've worked in big places. Big companies have their challenges. It doesn't matter what you're public, private, or anything else. Startups don't. They have different challenges. But I would say that technology is an amazing place to work in. To Callum's point before, you don't need to be coding to be working in technology. You don't need to be kind of that sort of thing. But you can definitely get involved in different roles and help and make the world a better place, which is a fantastic thing to do.
Thank you so much, Russell. Yeah, very, very well said.
One last thing, it's not on sort of advice for anyone in technology as such, but just a little selling point for working in the public sector. The work-life balance that we have here, I don't think anywhere would be able to match that. It's one of the biggest things about working in the public sector and working for DWP. We also have huge learning opportunities as well within the department. And it's that and the sort of the benefit of building a better future for our citizens that keeps me coming into work all the time.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, great addition there, Callum. Thank you so much. So thank you to everyone for listening in. Another fantastic episode of the DevLab podcast. As I've mentioned throughout the podcast, please check the description. We'll include plenty of links, some focused around, learning opportunities, getting into technology in the first place, but also plenty of content around the DWP specifically, the roles that are on offer and how to get in touch, most importantly, if you are interested. And why wouldn't you be, right? I think the guys on today's podcast have really detailed the impact you can have across the country, the opportunity to work with new and emerging technologies, working in a collaborative, growth-focused environment that really kind of values your learning and development. So yeah, lots on offer there. And certainly anyone out there listening in that is considering that next role in technology, I would certainly encourage you to take up the opportunity to find out a little bit more, have a conversation, and see where things go. But yeah, that just leaves me to thank all of our guests for today. So thank you so much, Russell, Naren, and Callum for joining us. And thanks to everyone out there for listening in.